Carry on, thank you. Going to Rushanara, please.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Chancellor.
Hi.
I want to start off by saying that obviously all of us appreciate what you did immediately as the virus hit with the job retention scheme and some of the other interventions. But so far from the responses on those who've been left behind does seem to today suggest that your ability to listen and respond and take into account the perspectives of colleagues, and it's actually 3 million households, according to the Standard Life Foundation, the New Starter Justice Campaign, the all-party group on the excluded, with close to 100 members of parliament joining across parties, who are very concerned about people who are being left behind because, as your chief secretary said in the last session when I asked him, you had to look at the hard edges when you're introducing a program that could be simply, easily applied. And as a result, there have been trade-offs. But, you know, taking into account your party's references to leveling up, this crisis has obviously created huge problems. And your response and inability to take into account the need to do something to help those who've been left out, the 3 million, does feel like you've stopped listening. What do you have to say to that? And is there anything you could do in terms of reconsidering to help the 3 million households that still haven't had the support that they need? And they're not earning 200,000. You know, I've got freelancers, I've got, you know, supply teachers who have suffered in this crisis, who haven't got anything because of being left out.
I think, and I'm sorry, there's probably not much I can add to my previous responses on this, but you know, these decisions were made with reason, and I've tried to explain them, and I'm happy to explain them again. But we go back to, for example, this £50,000 one. It's not a question of not listening; it's a question of a decision that I took to target support on those who I thought most needed it, and to draw a line at a place that I thought was reasonable, where people's incomes were in the top 5%, and I thought that was a reasonable place to be. And people can disagree with that, and I completely understand that, and they will be upset. But that's not a question of me not listening. That's a question of me making a decision, explaining it, and we're disagreeing it, and that's the job I have.
Let me move on to then my next question, which is partly related to this point. Earlier on to Angela's question, you talked about your response to the job retention bonus and the £9.4 billion you're going to spend on that, and your response to, you know, targeted approaches not being appropriate. There seems to be an inherent contradiction. On the one hand, you're not prepared to target support and respond to the 3 million households that are excluded. On the other hand, you're prepared to give a £9.4 billion job retention bonus, which, you know, and I don't often quote the Spectator as a Labour MP, which the Spectator has taken apart because it will lead to perverse incentives, with businesses bringing back people that they might have made redundant so that they can benefit from the furlough scheme, and getting rid of people who might have put their lives at risk in order to do their jobs during the pandemic. And that doesn't seem like a particularly targeted response that is going to be effective, and is very costly. So what do you have to say to that?
If you have is there some people or group of people, do you think, that should not be eligible for the job retention bonus?
The question is, are you actually...
Because again, we're hearing it should be more targeted, but being more targeted means people should be excluded. And I'm just wondering who should be excluded from it.
Chancellor, you asked me a question. What I'm saying is that it is possible, quite possible, and there are commentators, not necessarily on the left actually, who are concerned that your response, your approach, could lead to smaller businesses, medium-sized businesses, not actually getting the help they need through this scheme and being able to take advantage of the bonus, because they're not going to be able to afford to pay people the salary and get the £1,000 bonus. But others who may not need it are likely to not need the support will get the bonus. So could you at least send us an impact assessment of how this...
So that's fair. So let me respond to that. As I've completely acknowledged, there is dead weight in the scheme, as there was in the furlough scheme and the vast majority of interventions we've made, right? So I think it's hard to be against the principle of dead weight in principle if you're in favour of some of these other things that have to have been developed at scale and at speed. In an ideal world, everything would be completely targeted, but that is not the ideal world that we actually live in, where we're dealing with something happening at this scale, speed, and severity, which requires a different response. But to your point specifically, I'll walk you through why I think the impact is actually very positive. If you look at who uses the furlough scheme, 95% plus of the 1 million businesses are small and medium-sized businesses. 2/3 of the employees work for those small and medium-sized businesses, 5, 10, 15 employees furloughed. So those are exactly the overwhelming number of businesses who constitute this population. So that's the first thing. So if you're a small business with 5 employees that you furloughed and brought back, £5,000 will make a lot of difference given the economics of a business of that size. I think the second thing to say is, to your point, well, how do you compare it to employment costs, which is the right question to ask. If you look at the 50th percentile or average of someone in the furloughed population and look at the total employment costs from August through to January and compare that, the £1,000 to that, the £1,000 represents roughly, because we can't be completely precise about the maths, but roughly about a 20% of the employment costs over that period. Now, 20% is quite a significant incentive for employment outcomes. So I actually think all the labour market evidence we have from previous hiring subsidies or apprentice incentives, which are typically set at around 11%, and there's good studies on this, have shown positive labour market outcomes. So I do believe, given where it is set, it will have a very positive impact on hiring and retention decisions for that group.
So in terms of the interventions you've made, the £30 billion or so of interventions you made, are you confident that alongside the interventions you made with the job retention program and the support to businesses, on balance, that what you're doing is going to be enough to prevent the projected rapid rise in unemployment, including the youth unemployment numbers, which are very worrying for all of us? And if you're not, obviously we've got the budget later on in the year. Do you feel that it might have been better to do more now, or is it okay to wait till later in the year? Because people are very concerned about a second wave of the coronavirus pandemic, concerned about uncertainty around what kind of deal we're going to have on Brexit and how much friction there'll be even if we secure a deal, or in the worst case scenario, if there's a no deal. Do you think that package is adequate for now, or should you have taken advantage and gone for something much more ambitious and bold now?
So I would agree with you. I'm particularly worried about youth unemployment. Young people are 2.5 times more likely to work in closed sectors. We know that. And we also know from experience and from academic and economic evidence that young people are the ones that are the greatest risk of scarring. If they lose contact with the labour market early on in their careers, that has a very damaging impact on them for years and years to come, which is why it's right and appropriate to target interventions on them, which is why we launched the Kickstart scheme, which will particularly and acutely focus on young people.